Every day, they answer the call. They see what most people will never see. They carry moments most people will never understand. But when the call ends, who is there for them?
911, what's your emergency?
Hello, first responders. My name is John Ott, and on behalf of my co-host, Scott Pavlock, welcome to Mind on the Line. This episode is entitled Haymarket Center, Chicago, which is a intensive first responder wellness retreat that we'll be going into and we'll be talking about here during the course of the show. I'd like to really welcome two really good friends of mine and very special guests to the show, Miss Rayanne Fuller, who is a career professional, career emergency response professional. We also have Dr. Cami Juswin, who Scott will introduce later. And we want to get right to it. This is an incredible kind of the foundation of one of the reasons why we created this type of podcast. And you'll kind of discover that as we go on with this interview. But Rayanne, thank you so very much for being here. It's really a pleasure. I know that both you and Cami and Scott, we've all been talking about doing a podcast like this. So really honored to have both of you there and both of you here. And we're looking forward to this. So we'd like to start out really, again, this is really about the Haymarket Center, Chicago, and the resources in the retreat and the program that they provide for first responders. Both Rayanne and Dr. Juswin have been lifetime first responders, have been in emergency services in one form or another, and it's really an honor to have them have them here and talk about really what this is. And we're going to start out with what is CISM, which is Critical Incident Stress Management. So let's start there because at least most responders know what that is, Critical Incident Stress Management. So as always, we like our guests to do a brief background and introduce themselves and what they've been into, how they got involved in this work, and learn a little bit more about them.
Thank you for inviting me here, John. I'm Rayanne Fuller. My basic training is as a nurse. I've been a nurse in critical care medicine and emergency services for the last 40 plus years. I currently am the EMS system coordinator for Endeavor Highland Park EMS system. And my background has included being a paramedic, teaching paramedics. This is my second time in the role of an EMS system coordinator. And I've been a member of the Northern Illinois Critical Incident Stress Team since its inception in 1984. And it's an honor to serve first responders, be they paramedics, firefighters, police officers, nurses, physicians, and a million other jobs that really are essential first responder roles.
Great.
I have to give a shout out to Endeavor Health, and in that, Rayanne was one of the first people I reached out to, and I said, I would love for you to be a part of our team. I'd like you to be the other part of the foundation of the team. And Endeavor supports this to the extent that their contribution is to have Rayanne here with us at every single retreat. And it's just been such a lovely working relationship, the wisdom, and she helps bring that comprehensiveness to the health, the essential medical aspect of the people who come here. So, yeah,
Thank you.
Great.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that background, Rayanne. You've had an unbelievably, successful career. And I know you've been the pioneer of critical incident stress management, at least in the Northern Illinois area, being the pioneer or one of the, as they say, the OGs of CISM, at least here in the Midwest. What role does CISM play immediately after a critical incident, Rayanne?
I think most important is having leaders that are trained in understanding the impact of a critical incident and then being able to reach out. Critical incident stress management is multiple approaches, like a toolbox, in a multidisciplinary approach that is organized and consistent, utilizing appropriately trained peers and mental health providers.
Oh, I wish we could help people understand that that's concisely what it is, right? And so what does a well-executed CISM response look like based on what your experience and what you've seen, the good and the bad?
I can speak from my experience with the Northern Illinois Critical Incident Stress Team. We started early enough, 1984, where the only thing we did was critical incident stress debriefings, which frequently get confused with operational debriefings.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
There is a difference between an operational critique and an emotional support critical incident stress debriefing. As a team, we've grown as the evidence has grown. And so as a team now, we have a coordinated approach to pre-incident education, immediate response for diffusings, where we can get in there within 8 to 12 hours of a critical incident, demobilizations for a large-scale event where we want rescuers, first responders to go home, get some rest, but the operation isn't over and they have to return. And then there's debriefings, which is what everybody is familiar with.
Right, which is that immediate, just to be clear, CISM is the immediate support. It's not long-term treatment. Diffusings are all also.
Each one
purpose
is structured differently. It's a different tool in the toolbox based on the time frame from the incident. It is an acute response. It's not meant for long-term, and it's not therapy. The diffusings, like I said, occur within 8 to 24 hours. A debriefing is usually 72 hours or longer after the incident. So you obviously are dealing with different reactions and a different level of impact at that point.
Yeah, those are important differentiators. Absolutely. And thank you for those definitions, because I think simplifying it like that for first responders, because there's probably a ton of definitions out there, and I know many first responders are leery and get scared that it's therapy, or if I go, and we'll talk about that, about some of the stigma that occurs with, if I go and if I go and advocate for myself because I'm not okay, there's a stigma that comes with that, and we'll talk about that.
I'm the co-host, Scott Pavlak, and we've been speaking. Before I introduce our next guest, I want to comment on Rayanne. I want to say a title many of us have given to Rayanne, and me personally, I make no light joke of the fact I call her mom. And Rayanne is a caring individual who I imagine deals with her patients in an incredible way, but in the CISM realm is just an amazing lady. So I wanted to throw that in personally to me. She's guided, mentored me through many a personal life situation as well as professionally. So I want to get that out on Rayanne before we go to our next guest.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Our next guest is Dr. Cami Jeslin. And it's interesting calling her doctor because she has a slew of credentials. But then I'm going to say another thing about her is this is probably the woman that in my lifetime has helped more people than anybody I know, literally saving their lives in what she does, and then teaching other people to go out and save other people's lives. So, Doctor, I want you first to introduce yourself. You have an extensive background. I'm going to ask you to do it in under a minute and a half, and probably we could have a 30-day period devoted to all the things you've done. But if you can touch on that for
I
us.
had a lot of opportunities. So I'm Cammie Jeswin. I'm a clinical psychologist who is also a police psychologist and currently practicing primarily in the area of trauma and first responders and disaster mental health. So my background very much overlaps all of those. I'm a traumatologist. I'm a longtime member, 25 years this year, with the critical incident team, which is how I know both of you guys. And
that's the Northern Illinois
the
Critical
Northern
Incident team?
Yes, the Northern Illinois team. And I'm also a member of the Regional Emergency Medical Response Team. I'm the mental health coordinator for the Haymarket group. And I'm on the Federal Disaster Response Team, the Federal Mortuary Support Victim Information Center team. So I've had so much opportunity to do a number of things that put me in contact with training students, training first responders and essential personnel on topics related to mental health and wellness and the like. So truly, like my path, I really get to be out there, which is why I get to see and have so much contact with people. But the last, I'm an embedded police psychologist in Bartlett, Illinois, have been doing that now for 15 years, and have been with the Haymarket Center of Chicago. And one of the reasons that Dr. Lustig, who is the CEO and president, hired me was I had talked to him about my goal of having a first responders and essential personnel retreat. And he made it his mission to get that funded. And so currently, that's the path that we're on, is doing these intensive, very personal, immersive CISM and peer support, because they dovetail and they support each other, based educational mental health and wellness retreats for first responders. So we have that for 4 years. So that's me.
So Dr. Jeswin, there was something that Rand spoke about. She spoke about CISM, and I believe the host, John, mentioned that CISM is immediate support, not long-term treatment. I want to ask you the question, where do people misunderstand the distinction, the long-term and that CISM portion? Can you explain the difference in what you do and what Rand's talked about?
Sure. Peer support is a series of, it's not an intervention, but it's a connection. Mm-hmm. And it is a connection of support and mentorship for someone who might be in distress or having need of, because they're overwhelmed, they're really traumatized, they're in need of the support because they've just hit their wall, or they've hit a wall.
So it may not be a critical incident that causes that. That could be life as a patrol officer that just is having a bad day suddenly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be that accumulation of really bad days. And a peer supporter can either be there to say, hey, looks like you're having a really hard day, let's sit and talk. Or it can be that resource that is available that they can reach out to. And so the peer supporter is someone who walks with that person to get them connected to bigger resources or help them find the resources that they may need, which could be anything from sitting down for a one-to-one with a peer supporter or someone from a critical incident team, all the way up to therapy, or if necessary, their physician, or sitting down with another supporter, or even a higher level of care if that's necessary. And that's very rare. So I don't want to scare people, because the first thing is not hospitalization.
Okay.
So then you have CISM, which is incident based.
Okay.
So, one of the things, for example, in the hospitals, that over the 25 years of being on the team, how many times have we gone into hospitals who, for example, labor and delivery might have had, over a short period of time, a high number of mother and infant deaths, or there has been a very serious accident that might have involved a child, or a series of events or an officer involved shooting, where we go in and we meet with the individuals involved. Thinking of some of the regional applications recently, sometimes we're there on the scene before the officers go home, and that piece is an educational piece. Here's what the next 48 to 72 hours might be like for you, 24 to 48 hours might be like for you. These are normal reactions to really abnormal symptoms. Pay attention to how your stress management is working. This may not be a critical incident for you, but it might. But it's an opportunity to put something in front of them and let them know we're there. And then we can arrange, after 2 good sleeps usually, an opportunity for them to come back as a group to sort of psychologically put it together for themselves and to talk about observations, reactions, and then what they might be experiencing. Because the goal is it's both preventative in that, information is power, knowledge is power. And so that if they are having accumulated stress, they can recognize that not only are they having it, but there's a way to offload it, perhaps, or to address it. But it's also a great way for individuals to understand what is a normal reaction, because, one of our sayings is you're having a normal reaction to a very abnormal situation.
Okay. Yeah, great point.
And then, as we know, the calls keep coming.
Okay. So would this statement be fair? CISM or peer support in a smaller incident helps in the moment, but it doesn't treat or deal with long-term trauma.
Right. And they're both short-term support activities, interventions to help people get to a place where they can make a decision about if they need something more. And if they need something more, how do we help provide the resources to get them that more? And how do we clarify all of the options that are the more that they can go to? So one of the worst things about being through an experience of critical incident stress or trauma exposure is that sense of isolation. And CISM and peer support, complementing and supporting one another, help to make sure that isolation isn't the response.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. And I'm really happy that we're making the distinction, because our listeners and the people watching this podcast getting an education about what it is and what it isn't. And when they're asked to come participate especially in the CISM activities immediately after an incident, I'm sure all of you have seen, you show up to a line of duty or to do a debriefing, and you may or may not have the majority of the departments there, or the people that were involved. So I know certainly on call outs of myself or Scott and I, there's been a large number of people, and sometimes there's not, because of sometimes the stigma where people say, that's therapy, that's not for me. Mm-hmm. But I want to talk about a shift. Let's talk about the shift when supports.
Could I add something?
Absolutely.
So one of the things that I just want people to understand is that it may not be a critical incident for you. If your department is having a critical incident and you happen to be there, or saying somebody in the area had a critical incident, or somebody is having some reaction to it or some impact by it, one of the things that is really important for the other members of the shift, if you were there to go to the debriefing, is in part just go to hear the information. You may actually have a piece of information or a comment or an observation that might be really helpful to someone else, as well as what's really wonderful when some of the older, more experienced officers are there. It really sets up this opportunity for the younger individuals to see what the older officers, more experienced officers may need, and there's some mentoring that they like, oh, Scott has been through this. He said he's been through this before, and this reminds him of a time. And this might be somebody that I could now go to have some conversation in an informal peer conversation.
Yeah.
And it's really wonderful because the opportunity for mentorship and that support leaves that room. And then they also change the culture. You want to change the culture of stigma? Take part in peer support. Take part in critical incident debriefing. Be open to talking about it appropriately with people who are willing to mentor and support you, who've been down that path, and say, I don't want you to suffer the way that I have suffered throughout my career. I don't want you to be as scarred as I've been throughout my career. And the best way to beat the stigma is to acknowledge, like when you work out and sometimes you tear a muscle, you have an injury. And the psychological, emotional exposure to trauma, it's the same. It's a parallel.
Well said. Absolutely. And this, the next question sets of questions that really deal with what happens when support isn't enough. So let's talk about that shift when support that you speak of, Dr. Jesmond or Cammie, starts to fall short. And Rayanne, what would you say are the signs that someone is dealing with more than peer support can handle? I'm sure you've seen those types of signs outwardly, when maybe subtly or maybe not so subtly.
I think there's two levels to the peer support. One is the greatest resource among first responders are their peers, because we come from a history where it's suck it up. If you can't handle it, get out. There's not been the openness. By having peers who are open and know your baseline, they know when you're not right and when something is bothering you. Because as we talk about critical incidents, they're not all big events. Sometimes a critical incident can be an event that has happened and the rest of the crew is fine, but because of an identifying factor, then you have one person who's impacted. So it's not always the whole department. An example is I had a first responder that was on the death of a child that had drowned. Oof. And the detectives were angry. They were sad. The medics were sad. The police were sad. But it wasn't at the level of a critical incident. But one medic had a history of asthma, and he said to me, the worst part of this is I know what it's like not to be able to breathe, so I understand how the child felt as it died. So that was a critical incident for him, but not for the whole group. So peers play a huge role in identification and then support and opening the door to getting rid of the stigma, so that then you can pick the right tool within critical incident stress management to fit the situation, the team, and the individuals. Do we need a diffusing? Do we need a peer one-on-one? Do we need a full debriefing of the department? And even in then, you can break down into like situations, or some of the best debriefings I've been on are multidisciplinary, where you have dispatch and fire and police and everybody that touched the situation. But then sometimes there's a natural break for a natural likeness in the situation. And so that's why I think the great thing about CISM is it has evolved into meeting the needs of the first responders. That's where the pre-incident education comes in for leadership to understand this is the number I call. They'll walk me through the process. They'll help me pick the right interventions, and they'll assess the situation if there's further things to occur or further services needed in the short term. That will include, everything should include education and an opportunity for referral for long-term support. So it shouldn't be a standalone event or service. It should be an ability. A peer can refer and identify for CISM. CISM can educate and refer for further treatment or further support.
Rayanne, just to follow up to that, so in the Northern Illinois CISM team, I know that you play a significant role in that team. I believe you are the president. Is that right?
She's the grand poobah.
Yes, the grand poobah.
The mom. The OG.
As a chief, because we deal a lot with administrators, but maybe as just an officer, if I don't know which of these things that is this a peer support situation? Is it a CISM thing? Is it, I need to get some other kind of care? Would I be able to call your organization and talk to somebody there, somebody that's answers a phone that can say, hey, this might be what you need?
Absolutely.
We do. We have dispatchers who connect directly into coordinators. Each of our coordinators are trained debriefers, so they can answer the questions. They can work with leadership in order to choose the right service.
Okay.
And then we'll do the call out to connect the right clinicians or the right peers, because we tend to work as a team, clinicians and peers together, to meet the needs of that department. And so they don't have to make the decision. They don't have to call up and say, I need a diffusing. Because most people, what you get is, I need that thing you do for this stuff.
The voodoo magic.
Right, that's right. So we will walk them through the process. And for some events where you have multiple services in multiple agencies, we'll connect to the agencies.
Right.
The one thing we will not do is chase an event.
Okay.
So it's important for leadership to understand we can hear on the news that there was a horrific situation, but we are not going to call that department, because the last thing we want to do is to be seen as, for lack of a better term, being an ambulance chaser.
Right. Yeah.
And the last thing any chief wants is John Doe calling up and saying, hey, I'm with the CISD team. Can I be there to help you? If they don't know what it is, they're not going to want you there. So that's where pre-incident education is important, and being for us to be visible and to have presentations. And we do have people and presentations to meet the organization's needs.
So a chief like myself could contact you and work all this out, because I'm a simple person.
On the way 1-800 number.
Right. Okay.
And I think that what's important is that we're all volunteers. So there's no financial gain to it.
Right.
And the other thing that I know, I'm sure I'm speaking for you, is that we come in without established relationships. So when we go in and to talk to a department or a group of people, we don't have pre-established relationships with them. So we are absent the politics. Who are we going to tell? We're not going to tell anybody anything. There's no documentation except related to the 503C or whatever that is, where we say how many people have we served over the year. And so we're not going to be connected to the politics in the department, and nor are we there to generate patients. The other comment I want to make is that, the CISM model is peer driven, mental health supported. Okay. And so when I go, for example, I typically do the education piece. I mean, I'll comment, of course. Of course, you know me, so I'll comment. And so, but I support the work that my peers are doing. I'll often lead the educational piece, but I'll also sometimes we'll all be sitting trying to identify that person who may need a little bit more. And so when we talk about resourcing or offering extra support, I may say, hey, listen, that individual seemed really connected to you. Maybe you want to talk to them, as we disband, or, if you need more resources, feel free to reach out to me and I can help connect you with.
And I believe in a little bit, I think we're going to go into some of those longer term
resources,
things
yeah.
here shortly to talk about that.
I think it's important to understand that as a team, we are apolitical and financially we're not supported by anybody.
Right,
We solely are donation based.
right. Which is pretty consistent for the groups that are associated with the International Society. But the idea is our people come from across northern Illinois and even into Wisconsin. So
Yeah, it's an amazing, your organization is just amazing on the outreach that you've done to people and the ability to have access to this program. I know that, Scott made me aware of the program, and I've attended several of the retreats, including now and, in the one we're in the midst of. I want to quickly transition very quickly to ask Rayanne, what are people doing instead of addressing it directly? Specifically, do you see patterns in first responders of having sleep issues, withdrawal, increased alcohol use, emotional shutdown, just your typical, your typical type of responses? Specifically, any trends?
I can say that going out on, and I've been doing debriefing since 1984, the one thing I hear a lot about is sleep disturbances, an inability to go to sleep, an inability to stay asleep. I also have the honor of working with spouses, and the impact of essentially first responders are like being married to a bigamist because they have two families. They have a formal family, they have an informal family.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And when something happens in the department, they will turn to the informal family, which many times excludes the formal family. And nobody teaches the formal family how to be married to or live with a first responder. So it's honoring both of those relationships. The other thing is when a marriage starts to go bad or a relation starts to go bad, they will turn to the non-traditional family because it doesn't create the level of stress that occurs in the traditional family. And then there is more alcohol use. There is numbing techniques. One of the more recent things I have found is the impetuous purchasing. Now that we have Amazon, people are using that.
I resemble that remark for my purchases.
I think my wife's at home right now spending all my money, and it has nothing to do with a critical incident. But it will be for me when I get home.
And game and then the other is video game addiction and gambling.
Yeah. Please do not tell my wife on how much money.
The
I
one
spend.
that worries me the most is withdrawal. When they start to withdraw from family or they start to withdraw from their peers. Those are people that really we want to prevent. And that's the whole target of critical incident stress is get in early while the wound is open to help it heal the right way.
Right.
Yeah,
and
that's a great
give
point.
them tools so that maybe we don't see as much long-term damage and relationship damage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all this, I'm thinking of a single word throughout all of this because it's very thematic to me, and of course, I think all of us would agree with it. It's the vigilance. It's both the personal vigilance as the vigilance for each other, being aware and on guard for one another and check in. We'll talk a little bit about that as well.
All right, this is where the conversation we're having, we're going to move beyond the job and into structured support. So organizations, Dr. Jesman, like the Haymarket Center, step into that space when it's no longer something someone can manage on their own. For someone who's never heard of it, what is the Haymarket, if I'm getting it right, Center of Chicago? What is
the Center of Chicago is one of the largest privately held substance abuse centers in the country. And it is not for profit. And they typically do residential and long-term sort of actually anything related to substance abuse. They take people 24/7, 365 days a year. And so when Dr. Lustig, when I spoke to him about the idea of the retreat, this was totally out of the scope of anything like what Haymarket does. I mean, Haymarket has father-children program, mother-child program, detox. I mean, court diversion. All of that. And so before anybody says, "Oh, I don't need to hear anymore," I seriously stay with me here. The whole idea of the retreat is to foster an environment. And so it actually happens in a hotel. And so we have a federal grant, and the idea is to bring in peer support and elements out of critical incident stress management, the education, the support components, and to talk about the impact on your whole life about the vicarious, secondary, and primary trauma that responders and essential personnel have experienced across their career, and how that the culture, the workplace culture of being a responder, and I should also expand the medical personnel. They're part of our essential disaster workers, coroners, in addition to all of that we come together and we talk about the whole vast experiences that we've had across our careers, going for the commonalities, that it impacts our family, that it impacts our health, that, that it's changed our physiology. We have flashbacks, we have hypervigilance. We've seen and experienced and heard the evil that we wish other people didn't know about, and put up with some of the mundane and the silliness and the inanity that happens out there. So in a way, we build based on fellowship, this understanding about what health is, and understanding about those indicators of traumatic stress, grief, and loss, as well as educating and insulating for that, because what we don't want is when the suffering gets too big, the conclusion is often suicide or self-destruction. And how do we walk people back from that to recognize the cues or the indicators that they're really suffering, and that they're having normal reactions to the fact that their job is really abnormal. I mean, I've worked in a hospital for a good part of my career, but I have never seen the things that Rayanne has seen. I see some normal stuff, but compared to, I don't know, clinicians who've only worked outpatient, they've never maybe seen what I've seen.
So I'm going to break you there, because I'm sitting here and I'm very familiar with Haymarket. Obviously, yes. I've been here multiple times. In what you've described so far, just to clarify, so an officer that's listening to this show, because he's going, I got some issues and I don't know where to go. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but I've had a critical incident. I went to a debriefing or a diffusing. I've talked to my peer support person, and I know there's some things going on here, but I know that those aren't my problem. Number two, I'm a police officer, and I know I served over 30 years in Illinois, and a big fear amongst the officers is, well, I might go and I might lose my FOID card or my right to carry a gun. So where I'm going with this is, for that officer that's listening to us right now,
sure,
Haymarket is not something I'm getting signed into long-term or overnight treatment in a ward.
No.
It's not it's a way to deal with some specific issues that may be coming up that warrant the retreat, which is what types of issues would a typical person attending Haymarket be seeing?
Sure. So the Haymarket Intensive Responders Retreat is 4 days at a hotel. Okay. And you come and you talk about what you want. And if you don't want to talk about certain things, you can say, I don't want to talk about certain things. So how you sign up for it is really, you reach out either to the Haymarket page, and there's the Responders Retreat, and you can sign up, and then you get a phone call from most likely me.
And she's very easy to talk to and very pleasant. I can say that from personal experience.
Yes.
Can I get that in a clip for my my family?
You most certainly can.
And we talk about it. First off, I always say, what questions do you have for me? And there are a lot of people who say exactly that. This isn't for me. How can you help me? And the reality is, as a result of you working in the industry that you've worked in, that you probably have some ghost and some things you can't shake off. And you probably have some calls that you don't want to be at, et cetera, and so on. And by then, most people are going, yes, absolutely. Or that, is causing problems with my family. So we do a brief screening. And the questions, I think there are 8 questions that I ask. And one of them is about suicide. And before everybody cringes, I am a psychologist who, if I ever had to hospitalize someone in Illinois, officer who works in Illinois, believe me, we would be talking about what the alternatives are, because very few other states in the nation have that reporting
requirement.
Yeah. And so what we do, quite honestly, and Rayanne has been a big support with this, with a couple of people coming from our retreat, that we have resources out of state.
Okay. Rand, is this, I'm just looking over you because I know you're in the medical field, and obviously also that you're my mom. So moms look out for my scary things.
She truly is the mom.
Haymarket, because we just talked about the laws in the states, is there going to be a report? Is there going to be confidentiality if I go to Haymarket? And I want to touch the last part just to throw it. It has nothing to do with it. But how much of my credit card limit am I going to have to use to pay for the program? So
the great thing about the Haymarket retreat is when we say the focus is on you, we truly mean that. Because of the grant, there's no expenditure on your part, and there is no expenditure on the part of the department. And it is not a program that you could be mandated into. You come into it voluntarily.
Yeah.
Anything we do with critical incident stress or with Haymarket is strictly confidential.
And voluntary,
And voluntary. And that's
free.
Except
for your time.
Right.
Your time.
No, I got a very nice hotel room here, so I can tell the listeners that I've never eaten so much and such a fine facility. So Haymarket's taking care of me in that regard.
You bring a point, and I don't mean to interrupt. You bring a good point. It's not a place to come and party, right? This is not
absolutely.
This is not a. It's not a free vacation. It's not something you come here to do the work.
It's
and
immersive.
The work, the work is right. The work is for you and your fellow responders. And it's a place to come when it's no longer manageable.
It's so that you have somebody who can walk with you through the process of healing. And so that's why it's immersive. You come here, and from the minute we start the program, we are with you from the beginning of the program until past dinner every day. Mm-hmm. We start with breakfast together. This is about building relationships and learning how to maintain a relationship. And when you go home, it doesn't end. We set up group chats.
Our Facebook page.
And we have a Facebook page. And, what we have found is that of the peers and the mental health providers, those who come do usually connect in a way that when they go home, if they feel unsafe, and that has happened to me where somebody's been at the retreat, we've had a connection, we've talked, we get into bumpy parts, and they'll reach out and we'll take that journey a little further, even to the point of calling and saying, I think I'm in a really dangerous place. Mm-hmm. And we've been able to come together well past when the retreat has occurred to get resources to get that person to where they need to be it in the state of Illinois or out of the state of Illinois. Mm-hmm. We will work with the sole purpose of protecting, guiding, and walking a difficult journey to get people back to save their families and sometimes save their lives.
Great points. Really, really great points. Go ahead.
So back to the financial piece. The first several were written off the the budget, out of the budget directly of Haymarket, which operates on a very stringent budget. I mean, like they don't turn people away. Okay. And again, this program is totally separate, but Dr. Lustig's belief is that a healthy community rests on the shoulders of its responders and essential personnel. And in doing that, they assigned a whole grant team and like all of the resources that we need. And so for the listener, if like this sounds interesting to you, it's 4 days. It's a brief screening interview. And I think the hardest question that I ask you is, do you have any dietary restrictions and do you need the shuttle? And then of course, getting them to the hotel, which I'm not going to say where it is because I don't want random people potentially, but I'll tell you, when you're coming, but from the moment you get to the hotel, parking is paid for, everything that you need. The only thing kind of serious about is that the credit card and for incidentals, that's just a hotel policy. And I'll be honest with you, there have been times where people haven't felt comfortable about that. So I put my own credit card down. Yeah. And although if you order pizza tonight when you after this, that's on your incidental card. But it's 4 days of fellowship, and it's looking at and understanding every aspect of the workplace culture, the moral injury, the traumatic stress, critical incident stress, but we talk about and suicide prevention and education. So when I wrote the initial curriculum, I wrote it on the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standard Board, the 3-year mental health piece. And we've been trying to get it covered as the mental health training so people could come for training. The reality is it is so comprehensive that it so far exceeds it, and it is not a class that you come and you take. And so I do want to say that to people, because sometimes people will come and they'll say they expect a seminar. This is not a seminar. I mean, yes, we sit in a circle. No, we do not hold hands and sing Kumbaya. But I mean, if somebody wanted to do that, we would. What if that's what they need? But it is very immersive, and it requires people to be self-reflective, self-disclosing. It requires them to want to be here, to look at what is getting in the way of all or any of the facets of their life and their health, because our job is, and I know the chiefs in the room are going to cringe. My goal is that we get people into or close to their career so that when they do go to that next phase of their lives, that they go whole and happy, and they have a whole lot of resources, including their family and friends, to take with them. And they have an identity that's bigger than their uniform.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
That's a great point. I'd also like to nominate that Scott lead the Kumbaya portion of the.
Hey, John, I know you're going to move us along, and I appreciate that because you don't want my voice singing. But
then it would be a trauma.
I know we're going to move along, but I just want to clarify 2 points because I think it's important to the people that may be listening. So I have served as a chief, and I have served all the way up through the ranks in 38 years. I am currently in Wisconsin working as a court security officer. I want people to know this program is accessible from outside of state of Illinois. The other thing I want to say,
federal grant, so we take people, and actually we have a few people who are hoping to come from across the pond, and we take every level.
I think that there's two important things that I want to say. One is that the retreat affords each individual to be given permission and honor their individuality.
Yeah,
and
point.
That this is about the person. And most first responders, you asked me about things I see. Most first responders are always helping everybody else and not helping themselves. So it gets a little bit uncomfortable because now they really get to be themselves and take care of themselves. The other thing I want to say is that even though it's founded in law enforcement, when we talk first responders, we have had physicians, we have had nurses, we have had paramedics, we have had firefighters, death investigators,
psychologists, social workers,
dispatchers, everybody. And so I want the audience to come away with understanding that if you are in that first responder role, whatever the role is,
including corrections,
corrections,
we often forget corrections,
that this is a place you can come and be safe, and that the people that are here with that sole goal of taking away the barriers of taking care of yourself.
The other question might be about confidentiality.
Yes.
And again,
absolutely.
going back to why we love the critical incident model is that it's confidential. Except for that number, there's no feedback. There's no feedback that goes back to the department. Here, there are no notes. There's no report that goes back to the federal government on the grant, except for how many people did we serve.
Yeah, those are we can spend hours here, just really talking about all of us, talking about what the program has done for us and how open and how much you've made access, especially now with the grant and funding that has given people the access to be here. In our final segment, what I'd like to actually do is talk about what actually helps, right? Let's talk about what actually helps, because this is what people need to hear, right? Especially those that are suffering or maybe in crisis, or maybe they've just all of a sudden become aware, self-aware, or somebody has said, you know what, there's something that in this group they may have attended. I know I've brought people here. Scott's brought folks here. Scott brought me here. Rayanne, what are the changes for someone once they engage in this type of structured support? What are the quick observations you've seen?
I think the largest or the biggest observation I've seen is I see people come in under great duress and skepticism and fear. And over the course of the 4 days, you see people relax. You see joy return to their face. And I know that sounds kind of silly.
There's hope.
But they walk away feeling that they are worthy, that they are worth it, that the time is worth it, that what we have to share with them is worth it. And it's a sense of personal growth and putting them back in control. They come here feeling like their lives are out of control.
Yeah.
And giving them the ability to break down what is unique to them that they need and what support will help them to gain control and start to take one bite at a time.
Yeah, that's really important, because you really do see a shift in people after the 4 days. Dr. Jeswin, you'd said it a couple of times. What I get out of this is you come out from the very first day you're here. The message is hope. The message is hope, and that despair is something you could be aware of, but that you change and you reframe the conversation that you have with yourself and others to a message of hope. And that's really what I've come away with it as well.
Either Cammie or Rayanne, what would you just say to somebody that's watching this right now who knows something's off with them, whatever that may be, but hasn't taken the step, to move forward? And maybe what's the smallest first step they can take? Because sometimes we like it simple.
And it might be the retreat.
Yeah.
I think the first step is to just make the phone call and reach out. Because once you reach out, any question, there will be an answer for you. There'll be guidance for you. That first step, that first question will take you to the place that you need to be.
And then if really in close proximity to you, do you have a peer support, or even a regional or local critical incident team that, you might have ask if they provide one-to-one, which is often just sitting with somebody with coffee. Like we meet people for coffee all over the place. But, ask the question. And, if you want therapy, outpatient therapy, and I know one of the biggest fears for first responders and essential personnel is that your exposure to treating mental health people is often in a wellness check where you're fighting with someone to get them in the ambulance. That's not you, and so not everything is what is the metaphor, the hammer, just because you have a hammer, we're not looking at everything as a nail.
Yeah.
And so there may be something way in between, an outpatient therapist, an outpatient therapy group, all the way to, yes, inpatient or residential.
I'd like to end with this, is that really getting help is awareness.
Yeah.
It's not weakness. And that's, I know I've heard a lot of responders say that it's going to be weak if I ask for help.
You go to training, special training for surgical skills, for tactical skills, for how to do different, I watch my guys all the time, different martial arts skills. Mm-hmm. Your nurses go for every update, et cetera, and so on. We work with personal trainers. We bring people in to do active shooting.
Cammie likes to put on a vest and go be a hostage and get shot at with paintballs.
I don't like it, but I did it for 15 years. I have to admit, I do enjoy the thrill of it. So, although I'm a really good bad guy, but we could talk about that offline. But the reality is that how often, do you talk to your pastor or your spiritual advisor about your faith? Why wouldn't you do that for the body, mind, spirit, soul connection as it's impacting your overall health? Yeah.
Yes.
Great points. This is incredible information. I'm going to give another plug if you're a first responder out there, on behalf of everyone here. If you're a first responder out there and you're hurting, and even if you're not hurting, you've seen a lot of things. You've experienced traumatic events. If you've been on more than 15 minutes, if you've answered a single call, a service, but mostly it's built up over time. Please consider Haymarket Retreat. Everything, all the contact information of everyone here will be down in the show notes. Can't say enough great things about Haymarket Center of Chicago and the retreat, and really the self-awareness and self-care about first responder peer support and wellness. On behalf of Scott Pavlock and myself, and I want to really thank the both of you for your time. It's been incredible today, especially taking time out from leading the retreat and providing those wellness services and just that care and support and love to your fellow first responders. It means the world to Scott and I. So on behalf of Scott and myself, this is Mind on the Line. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Mind on the Line. If today's conversation resonated with you, we encourage you to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who may need to hear it. Every conversation helps break the stigma surrounding mental health and reminds those who serve that they are never alone. If you're a first responder, healthcare professional, dispatcher, veteran, or someone who supports those on the front lines, remember this: taking care of your own well-being is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that allows you to continue serving others. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other. This is Mind on the Line, because no one carries this alone.